talking Ghost in the Graveyard. This movie is written and directed by Charlie Comparetto, and this one has a pretty decent cast of recognisable character actors: Maria Olsen, Royce Johnson, Jake Busey. You've got some kind of newer faces here. Kelly Berglund stars as our main character. Sally Sullivan, Olivia Larson also has a kind of fairly sizable role here as well. Now, what is the story? Well, it's small town USA, and Sally is this girl who has come back after 10 years of kind of essentially being in exile. And 10 years ago, they were playing a kind of a game in the graveyard, and her young friend Martha was killed in a seemingly kind of tragic accident. Now, 10 years later, she returns home to this kind of this small town to kind of meet her father, played by Jake Busey, her brother, her potential kind of love interest, this guy she's been writing to, and even the kind of the school mean girls and bullies. So Sally seems to be visited by this ghost of Martha, this young girl who was killed 10 years before. But not only that, there seems to be an even bigger paranormal presence within this kind of town. They may well be witches, they may well be kind of some type of devil worshippers, there may even be some type of holy ramifications. But that's what we'll say about the plot. You'll have to watch the movie to find out. So, let's talk about what works first of all. I have to say, I think the first thing that struck me here, I think the acting is all pretty good in this movie. Having watched a lot of independent horror movies, B-movies, straight to DVD and VOD fare, you see a lot of choppy acting. But this one, I'm pleased to say, I think everyone here did a good job. Like I've mentioned, you do have a couple of recognisable actors here who set the bar to a good standard, but everyone kind of follows suit. There's not one weak link in the bunch, to be honest. So I kind of enjoyed the acting and was kind of buying into each one of these kind of characters, so that was good. The next thing I would say, I think the production value is pretty damn good. Even though this movie is not particularly effects heavy, I feel it does have the presence of being a slickly and professionally made movie. All the shots are kind of well handled. The cinematography is great. The lighting is to a fantastic standard. The sound design, on a technical level, I feel this movie is particularly kind of well done. It gives a sheen and polished finish that you would expect from more of your studio flicks compared to maybe your indie filmmakers and stuff like that. The movie is certainly ambitious in its story as well, and there are a few creepy moments within the film. Like I said, there's not particularly an effects-heavy movie, but nonetheless there are a good use of some creepy kind of scenery and some vibes. And like I've said, that this movie will keep you guessing, because the plot is somewhat expansive and will kind of go into directions where you may not expect. But therein lies the problem. And this movie has one big problem. The problem being the story, the script, the narrative flow. It is all over the place. Unfortunately, I feel there's lots of good ideas within this movie, but the way it is pulled off is simply scattershot and all over the place. The film's plot is quite simply nonsensical. It doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense. Some things will kind of drop into place as the movie kind of gets towards the climax, but nonetheless, I mean, there's a lot here that simply is absolutely, why am I watching this? Let's take, for example, Martha the ghost. When it's all said and done, has very little to do with the actual outcome of the plot, I have to say. Who is the mother of this small baby that is kind of maybe her sister, Sally's sister, or I don't know, maybe who's her nephew, niece, we don't know. We just don't know. Things are not adequately kind of given answers to in this movie. The plot here and people's motivations are scattershot and all over the place. We don't know whether we're coming or going. The movie runs at a slow pace. It's more a character-based thriller horror than a kind of a visceral kind of jump scares or gore horror. And that can work, but I feel you have to have an engaging storyline for this to work. And although there are elements here, and I think ideas that work, certainly for a potential good story, the end result, unfortunately, is just not well handled. and the storytelling now, the storytelling is simply poor. So unfortunately, this movie is seriously let down by some poor kind of story choices and maybe some pacing issues as well. Should you see this movie? I think there is stuff to enjoy here. It's not a particularly effects-heavy movie. There's some decent acting, but there's plenty of films that I can say that about. This film does have some ideas. I feel this movie could be remade and have a kind of maybe a better kind of script, because that's the main problem with this one, which has a better cohesive narrative. I feel maybe there's too many story elements here. When you come to the last act, they throw so many kind of things in the plot here, and so many kind of like ideas. It's just all over the place. And you know, you'll have people turn up without kind of giving away spoilers and everything. You know, people will kind of have relationships and things will just there's just no setup for it. This movie also relies heavily on conveniences. I'll just happen to this thing will fall out of my pocket right in front of someone who is going to pick it up and do something nefarious with it. Things like this, it's a little bit of a mess. This movie definitely needed another script rewrite. I'm going to have to give it a 5 out of 10. I really can't recommend this into a positive score, so it's going to be a bang on a kind of an average score for me, because the story is just so weak, unfortunately. But there is stuff I feel that is, at least visually, that is very interesting here. Like I said, the actors do a good job. I feel maybe the direction is strong to a point, but the writing from writer to director is on the weaker side here. So maybe I felt this maybe to have another writer or a producer to have a little bit more of a hand behind this, because I feel the one-man show that it is not working. But there you go, 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.